PM's visit to Australia an important success. EU Conservatives back von der Leyen for second term. Happy International Women's Day. You're watching World Today. With me, I'm Jessica Lee. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's official visits to Australia succeeded not only in ensuring continuous bilateral relations for both countries, but also highlighting the importance of viewing one another as partners in today's highly interconnected and integrated world. Now, he departed from Melbourne on the 7th of March for Canberra as part of his back-to-back official visits to Australia at the invitation of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Now, prior to his visit to the capital city of Australia, Datuk Seri Anwar held a 4-day official visit to Melbourne, where he participated in the second Malaysia-Australia Annual Leaders Meeting, or ALM, hosted by Australia and the special ASEAN-Australia Summit. Now, these back-to-back official visits can be best described as accomplishing two tasks with one effort that implies achieving two objectives with one single action, strengthening bilateral relations and addressing shared challenges, which perfectly summarizes the essence of Datuk Seri Anwar's successful visit. Indeed, his diplomatic efforts demonstrate Malaysia's dedication to bolstering relations with its global counterparts, as evidenced by his Canberra and Melbourne visits. And through active participation in forums such as the second Malaysia-Australia, or ALM, in Melbourne, the Premier has not only reinforced ties but also underscored Malaysia's proactive and cooperative stance within the international arena. The Conservative European People's Party, or the EPP, the biggest force in the EU Parliament, on Thursday endorsed European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen's bid for a second term. Now, having navigated multiple crises, ranging from COVID to the Ukraine war, as the European Commission head since 2019, the former Defence Minister is seeking a new mandate that would run to 2029. The backing of the EPP is key for the 65-year-old German who needs to get the endorsement of the EU Parliament to be renamed to the post. A total of 400 EPP delegates voted in favour of von der Leyen, while 89 voted against it at the party's Congress in Bucharest. In her words after the vote, von der Leyen thanked the EPP representatives at the Congress, including lawmakers, party leaders, and 12 heads of state and government for their trust, support, and determination. In a speech ahead of the vote, she said the EU faced a defining moment. As the largest grouping in the parliament, the EPP is keen to put on a show of strength ahead of the European elections. Scheduled to take place from the 6th to the 9th of June, the European elections will reshuffle the political balance in Brussels, including at the Commission. The UK lawmakers said finance firms in Britain should be banned from misusing non-disclosure agreements to silence victims of sexual harassment and abuse, calling for an end to an era of impunity for predators and bullies. A report on sexism in the City of London published on International Women's Day, the Cross-Party Treasury Committee called for new legislation to bar gagging orders that shield several perpetrators, cover up discrimination, prompt women to resign, and embed corrosive workplace cultures. The committee, led by lawmaker Harriet Baldwin, said it is shocking to hear how prevalent sexual harassment and bullying are still in financial services and how poorly firms handle allegations of such behaviours. The committee said it launched its inquiry in response to sexual assault and misconduct allegations by women in finance last year. The lawmakers quizzed executives, regulators, and invited evidence from advocacy groups and victims. Baldwin said progress in tackling sexism and misogyny in financial markets had moved at snail's pace since a similar investigation in 2018, adding that corporate inaction was both immoral and bad for business. Now, more than 80 femicides are officially recorded each year in Kazakhstan, where domestic violence is not included in the criminal code. Now, in a society deeply entrenched with patriarchal attitudes, the United Nations estimates that the unofficial figure could be as high as 400.
Оказаться здесь, потому что я пришла выразить поддержку моим коллежанкам, которые очень расстроены, что 8 марта, как наш день, как наши права женщин, да, как нашу повестку, акимат города Алматы просто отобрал и отдал прогосударственным активисткам, которые, увы, не представляют различные социальные группы, не представляют низовые инициативы. Сегодня они...
Rights groups say women in Kazakhstan feel pressured to drop accusations or reconcile with their abusers. A case in point, Indira Tergabuvaya has been fighting to be recognized as a victim in her native Kazakhstan after miraculously surviving her ex-husband's attempt to kill her. Despite being left with horrific injuries, police refused to investigate her abuser because he died in the attack. Tergabuvaya suffered third-degree burns and underwent several skin grafts on her face and hands. Several of her fingers remain dislocated. The cases of domestic violence are often glossed over by traditional media in Kazakhstan, where public debate is tightly controlled, but survivors and activists are increasingly speaking out on social media. The following backlash, Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev promised legislation to criminalize domestic violence, and authorities launched a public awareness campaign, but more needed to be done to protect all women. Spain will give an additional 20 million euros to the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, which is facing a cash crunch after several nations suspended their funding. Now, Spain's Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez announced the extra funding at a joint news conference in Madrid with UNRWA Chief Philippe Lazzarini.
Realizaremos una nueva contribución de 20 millones de euros a UNRWA para apoyar a la organización en su crucial labor humanitaria en Gaza y para atender las necesidades alimentarias, educativas y sanitarias de los casi 6 millones de refugiados palestinos en la región.
UNRWA Chief Lazzarini said he hoped Spain's move would encourage those nations that had suspended their aid to the agency to once again give it money. He also repeated his call for the road crossings into Gaza to be open to allow more aid into the territory. The agency has been at the center of controversy since Israel accused about a dozen of its employees of involvement in the 7th of October Hamas attack on southern Israel. Several countries, including the United States, Britain, Germany, and Japan, suspended funding to UNRWA following the allegations. However, the European Commission, recognizing steps taken by the UN, said it would release 50 million euros in UNRWA funding. Now, Sweden has become the 32nd member of NATO in the shadow of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, turning the page on 2 centuries of non-alignment and capping 2 years of torturous diplomacy. The days after Hungary followed key holdout Turkey and became the last NATO member to sign off, Sweden ceremonially handed over accession documents to the United States, the leading force of the transatlantic alliance that promises joint security for all.
Sweden is, as was mentioned, now leaving 200 years of neutrality and military non-alignment behind. It is a major step, but at the same time, a very natural step. Membership means that we are coming home to the Alliance for Peace and coming home to the Alliance for Freedom, to which many democracies already belong.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken, meanwhile, said few would have expected Sweden as well as Finland to join NATO before Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. He said it was a clear example of the strategic debacle that Putin's invasion of Ukraine has become for Russia. Sweden and Finland had historically steered clear of joining NATO, formed in the Cold War to unite against the Soviet Union. They launched a joint bid quickly after the invasion of Ukraine, which itself had unsuccessfully sought to join NATO, an alliance that under Article 5 considers an attack on one member an attack on all. Still to come, tractors flood Prague as farmers rally against government. Now, police in Spain said they had smashed a ring which allegedly falsified works by British street artist Banksy, which it sold around the world for up to €1,500 apiece. Officers arrested 2 people in the northeastern city of Zaragoza, where the forgeries were allegedly made, and 2 others with knowledge of the art world, suspected of having put the works on sale. Police suspect the ring sold at least 25 works, which were made with spray paint on cardboard in specialized shops, Barcelona auction houses, and online to customers in Germany, Scotland, Spain, and the United States. The ring forged certificates claiming the works had been created by Banksy as part of his Dismal Land project, a temporary exhibition that resembled a grim theme park set up in 2015. Police say they uncovered the workshop in Zaragoza in December, where 2 young followers of Banksy's urban art who had economic problems created the works. The investigation remains open, and police have not ruled out further arrests. Banksy, whose identity has never been revealed, is famous for his ironic murals in unexpected places. Now, his works, which have been found in locations ranging from London and New York to the West Bank and Gaza, have become highly sought after in the art world. The hundreds of tractors disrupted traffic in Prague's historic centre as farmers staged a rally against austerity policies and excessive red tape. Now, one protester was detained after spilling a truckload of manure outside the government building. In the latest of a wave of farmers' rallies staged across Europe, protesters called on the government to support rural employment and drop austerity measures, including taxes on EU subsidies. They also complained about high production costs, excessive red tape, EU environmental laws, and grain imports from Ukraine. Agriculture Minister Marek Wyborny, however, reiterated the government would not submit to pressure. The Agrarian Chamber expected 4,000 protesters and 1,000 tractors and other machinery in Prague, but the crowd outside the Czech government building in the capital was smaller. Thousands of farmers also rallied in neighboring Poland on Wednesday, slamming EU regulation and cheap imports from Ukraine. The former US President Donald Trump will have to pay at least £300,000 in costs after losing a UK court action against a former spy who compiled a salacious dossier about him. Trump took legal action against Christopher Steele's company, Orbis Business Intelligence, but High Court Judge Karen Stein ruled last month that there were no compelling reasons to allow the claim to proceed to trial. She wrote in her judgment that the data protection claim was bound to fail. The judge also threw out Trump's claim for compensation, stating that he had chosen to allow many years to elapse without any attempt to vindicate his reputation in the UK court since the dossier came out. In an order obtained by Britain's Domestic Press Association news agency, the judge said Trump will have to pay Orbis's cost of the entire claim. Now, she ordered that £300,000 be paid now before a specialist judge decides the final amount. Now, Orbis says this should be more than £600,000. The so-called Steele dossier sparked a political firestorm when it was published just before his inauguration in January 2017. It contained unverified and controversial information about Trump and Russia that the former Republican leader has repeatedly denied, including allegations of sexual misbehavior. Now, U.S. National Guard troops patrolled New York City's Grand Central Terminal and Penn Station after New York Governor Kathy Hochul said she would deploy 750 soldiers from the state's National Guard to help the police check commuters' bags in the city's busiest subway stations. The goal, according to Hochul, is to deter crime. She announced the deployment on Wednesday in response to recent high-profile assaults on commuters and transit workers. Despite police data showing that crimes on the subway are down about 15% in February compared to the same month last year, Hochul said commuters were still not reassured by rattling off crime statistics. The National Guard, a military force jointly controlled by federal and state leaders, does not have arrest powers but will help police officers who do. Now, joining the effort will be an additional 250 officers from the New York State Police and the state-controlled Metropolitan Transportation Authority Police. A U.S. power company admitted that its equipment may have sparked the latest or the largest wildfire in Texas history. Xcel, the parent of Southwest Public Service Company, which provides electricity to part of the state, said it was working with officials investigating the cause of the blaze that charred more than 1 million acres. The company said, based on currently available information, Xcel Energy acknowledges that its facilities appear to have been involved in an ignition of the Smokehouse Creek fire. Xcel, which is facing at least one lawsuit, denied its equipment was improperly maintained. However, the company encourages people who had property destroyed by or livestock lost in the Smokehouse Creek fire to submit a claim to Xcel Energy through its claims process. Hundreds of homes are thought to have been destroyed in the fire, which is known to have killed at least 2 people and over 3,000 farm animals. It is not uncommon for U.S. power companies to be blamed for destructive wildfires. Hawaii's Maui County last year began legal action against the island's electricity provider over the deadly fires that leveled the historic town of Lahaina. Now, Venezuela has invited the European Union to send a team to observe presidential elections on the 28th of July, in which President Nicolas Maduro is widely expected to seek another term. Now, Maduro's re-election to a 6-year term in 2018 was not recognized by the United States and dozens of other countries and was met with a string of sanctions. The president of the National Electoral Council, or CNE, Elvis Amoroso, said Thursday the body has sent invitations to the European Bloc and United Nations, the US-based Charter Center NGO, BRICS, and the African Union, among others. Now, Venezuela this week set a long-awaited election date, which comes after Maduro's government and the opposition agreed in Barbados last year to hold a free and fair vote in 2024, with international observers present. The deal saw the United States ease sanctions against the oil-rich South American country, allowing US-based Chevron to resume limited crude extraction and leading to a prisoner swap. The agreement required that opposition candidates be allowed to appeal court rulings, disqualifying them from holding office. Since then, however, the Supreme Court, loyal to Maduro, upheld a 15-year ban on opposition primary winner Maria Corina Machado. The presidential candidate will be announced on the 15th of March. Senegal's Constitutional Council said Thursday that it had agreed to hold the delayed presidential election on the 24th of March, in line with the outgoing president's suggestion. Now, the council on Wednesday scheduled the election for the 31st of March, while President Macky Sall, who had called off the original polling day of 25th of February, set a new date for a week before. The Constitutional Council said in a statement on Thursday that it had compensated for the inertia of the administration by announcing a 31st of March election date, but suggested that in the meantime, the executive remedied the situation by issuing decrees convening the electoral body on the 24th of March. The council said the decrees issued by Sall comply with the requirement to organize the ballot before the end of his mandate on the 2nd of April. Now, the move should ease the crisis triggered by Sall's delay to the presidential poll. Sol, in power since 2012, said he called off the vote due to disputes over the disqualification of potential candidates and fears of a return to the unrest seen in 2021 and 2023. The delay triggered uproar at home and abroad and unleashed protests, which left 4 people dead. The traditionally stable West African nation is now re-embarking on what is perhaps its most open presidential vote in modern history. Now, Haiti's main port was forced to close due to sabotage after days of worsening gang violence that have plunged the country into chaos and left the Prime Minister unable to return from abroad. Well, armed gangs launched coordinated attacks last week targeting key infrastructure facilities and breaking open prisons as they demand that leader Ariel Henry resign. Caribbean Port Services, the sole operator of the port in Haiti's capital city, Port-au-Prince, cited malicious acts of sabotage and vandalism as it announced a decision to suspend all services. The Haiti government extended a state of emergency by 1 month, covering the west of the country, which includes the capital city, but gangs control large swaths of residential areas. The UN's humanitarian office warned that the health system was nearing collapse, with many facilities closing or reducing services and a shortage of medicine and staff. It called for an end to violence to allow aid to enter the country. In power since the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise, Henry was due to leave office in February, but instead agreed to a power-sharing deal with the opposition until new elections are held. He has not commented on the surge in unrest and was last confirmed to be in the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. Up next in sports, Ronaldo in trouble as Al Nassr suffer another defeat. Stay with us. Cristiano Ronaldo and Al Nassr dropped further behind Saudi Pro League leaders Al Hilal with a stunning 3-1 loss to struggling Berita club Al Rayyad on home turf in Riyadh. Al Rayyad got on the board first in the 18th minute, while Cape Verdean striker Julio Tavares beat the defence to find Karim El Bukowi waiting in the box to finish it off with an easy boot. Al Nassr answered back just 5 minutes later when Ronaldo hit the post, leaving Saudi native Ayman Yahya there to clean it up off the rebound and get the home team on the board. But right out of the gates of the second half, Moroccan midfielder Mohamed Fazari made it 2-1 when he was well positioned in the box to pick up a nice assist from Amir Sayod. Al Nassr goalkeeper David Ospina got a hand on it, but it shot up into the top left corner. The visitors sealed the win with Fazari scoring again off a corner from defender Khaled Al-Subai, making it 3-1. Ronaldo had a chance to lessen the pain with a free kick in stoppage time, but his attempt hit the crossbar and went over the goal. Now the loss leaves second place Al Nassr with 53 points, 9 behind leaders Al Hilal, who have a game in hand. Now in tennis news, former world number 1 Simona Halep will make her first competitive appearance since winning an appeal over a doping suspension as she accepted a wild card into this month's Miami Open. The Romanian announced this on a social media post on Thursday. The 32-year-old Halep, a former Wimbledon and French Open champion, had her 4-year doping ban cut to 9 months by the top court for global sport this week, making her eligible to return to competition immediately. Now, Halep was suspended in October 2022 after she tested positive for roxadustat, a banned drug that stimulates the production of red blood cells at the US Open that year. Now, she was also charged with another doping offense last year due to irregularities in her athlete biological passport, a method designed to monitor different blood parameters over time to reveal potential doping. Halep, who vigorously denied the charges against her, has said that she would most likely be compelled to retire if the initial 4-year ban was maintained. The Miami Open runs from the 17th to the 31st of March. Taking a look at F1, Red Bull boss Christian Horner said he was confident Max Verstappen would see out a contract that ties the triple Formula One champion to the team until 2028. Now, Verstappen's future has been the subject of considerable speculation after his father, Jos, called for Horner's departure following allegations made by a female employee about the Britain's conduct. Horner was last week cleared of the accusations, which he denied. 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton had earlier refused to rule out a Mercedes move for the Dutchman. However, unlikely it may sound because his own decision to join Ferrari next season showed anything is possible. Verstappen won 19 of 22 races last year on his way to a third successive title. The 26-year-old started the new season in Bahrain with a dominant win from pole position with the fastest lap and leading from start to finish. Hamilton's Mercedes teammate George Russell said on Wednesday he was sure any team would want Verstappen, whose contract is believed to include release clauses linked to other key members of the team. Now, Hamilton and Verstappen fought for the 2021 title in controversial circumstances, with the Red Bull driver winning after a late change to the safety car procedures tilted the final race in his favour. The Briton, who has not won a race since that 2021 season, said the pass would not count against Verstappen. Olaf Koy of the Netherlands sprinted to victory in the 5th stage of the Paris-Nice cycling race on Thursday, his second victory in this year's race. The Visma Lease rider crossed the line after a bunch sprint ahead of Dane Mats Pedersen, who the 22-year-old also beat in the first stage last Sunday. Germany's Pascal Ackermann finished third after the hilly 193.5-kilometre ride from Saint-Sauveur-de-Montaigu to Sisteron. Australian Luke Plapp of Jayco Alula holds the overall leader's yellow jersey in the race to the sun with a 13-second advantage on Colombia's Santiago Buitrago with 3 stages to go. Now, looking forward to the weekend, the weather is set to take a bad turn, both for today's stage between Sisteron and La Côte-Salut and the penultimate stage tomorrow with snow forecast at the finish line in Auron. The race organisers are still waiting for the latest forecasts before possibly proposing an alternative arrival destination for Saturday. Of the pre-race favourites, Remco Evenepoel remains 5th in the general ranking and Primož Roglič lies 15th, 30 seconds and 1 minute 10 seconds behind the leader respectively. And that ends our bulletin for today. Wrapping up with a recap of the top story, Prime Minister's visit to Australia, an important success. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Before we go, we would like to wish a very happy International Women's Day to all our mothers, sisters, and the women of the world. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Jessica Lee. Stay tuned to TV2 and have a lovely day.